Congratulations, soldier. The Center for Advanced Lombax Research has selected you as the beta tester for the most important invention in Lombax history.
When the galaxy is in its darkest hour, when the forces of evil threaten everything we know and love, when the very fabric of space and time is ripped open, creating insurmountable chaos, when we need a couple of heroes to save our arsenals, who will we turn to?
Time will tell.
Insomniac Games, a small Burbank-based company, made its name in the late 90s for its simple and fun Spyro the Dragon series on the original PlayStation. But a more powerful console was on the horizon. Having just become independent from Universal Interactive, Insomniac was looking to whip up something fresh for Sony's next machine. And after months of deliberation, Brian Hastings, one of Insomniac's founding members, came up with the idea of a reptilian alien traveling from planet to planet, accumulating weapons and gadgets, introduced to the wonders of spaceflight by a robot on a mission to save the galaxy. The reptile traded his scales for orange fur, and the robot ended up no bigger than a toaster. These unlikely heroes became Ratchet and Clank.
Final step, attach robotic ignition system.
The first Ratchet game was released almost a full decade ago in November of 2002, making this year the series' 10th anniversary. The opening cinema found Ratchet, a Lombax, alone on a backwater planet, fixing a small ship with the aid of his trusty wrench, when an escape pod crashed nearby. Ratchet checked out the crash site and the cosmic duo met for the first time. The nameless robot persuaded Ratchet into hunting for the elusive Captain Quark, a galactic hero, and the two were off to infinity and beyond.
I'll just call you Clank for short.
Hello, citizens of...
During their journey, they discovered numerous planets under threat of destruction by Chairman Drek. Drek's species, the Blarg, destroyed their own world, so Drek planned to use the pieces of other worlds to create a new one.
If you don't like it, you can take your whiny, sniveling, snot-nosed populations, form a line behind me, and kiss my... We're still on? Well, turn it off, you idiot!
When Ratchet finally met the great captain, Quark turned out to be working for Drek and tried to have the pair killed.
Although there is one problem with your hypothesis. I'm not going to kill you.
You're not?
No, he is.
The two returned to Veldin, Ratchet's homeworld, and stopped Drek before he pulled the planet apart by the seams. Their mission was filled with big personalities such as tough guys who scare easy, an egomaniacal ruler, and a few eccentric adventures. They visited the booming city of Metropolis, went hoverboarding on the planet Rilgar, and explored the under-siege planet of Battalia, always searching for the next infobot to lead them further. As one of the first ever action platformers, it was full of close encounters of the weird kind, but the weapons left the biggest impression. These explosive inventions may have been leftover concepts from Insomniac's PS1 game, Disruptor, and each title in the Ratchet series would eventually become partially defined by the amount of insanity in its arsenal.
This thing is heavy!
Yeah, try carrying it around in a trench coat for 2 months.
The first game had some common items, bombs, blasters, and a flamethrower, along with some truly unique equipment. The Glove of Doom deployed a team of self-destructing robots. The Suck Cannons gobbled up smaller enemies and shot them like missiles. And the Morpho Ray turned bad guys into chickens. The game also came equipped with its own BFG, the Rhino, which killed everything in sight but carried a heavy price tag. During a second playthrough in challenge mode with harder enemies and more loot, you could pick up golden bolts and trade them for each weapon's gold model.
Did you see all the cool gadgets they're making? Let's go get some!
While Ratchet was increasing his firepower, Clank acquired new abilities such as a helipack and thruster pack for better platforming, and a hydro pack for underwater navigation. Ratchet also gained some gear, grind boots for traversing rails, magna boots for climbing on vents, and a handy swing shot which allowed him to Tarzan across gaps. In later games, the duo would be equipped with some of these tricks from the start, so fans wouldn't need to collect them all over again. The first Ratchet and Clank sold over 3.5 million copies, narrowly sliding into the top 20 best-selling games on the PlayStation 2.
This is about one thing and one thing only. Cash, and lots of it.
They immediately joined other characters like Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter as one of Sony's mascots.
Then, stay tuned for the galaxy's funniest superhero bloopers featuring Captain Quark.
5 months before Ratchet and Clank was released, Insomniac was approved to develop a second game. they were not short on ideas. Upgradable weapons, armor and health, space combat, arena mode, and some hover biking were all added to the formula. With this head start, Insomniac was able to follow the first game's success with a sequel just 1 year later.
Good luck. I'm counting on you.
Ratchet and Clank Going Commando rolled off the assembly line in November of 2003. Its story picked up shortly after the Lombax and the robot had run out of fame.
We're still pretty busy, but in a more, domestic sense.
Yesterday, I flushed out my radiator core.
Miss Doodlebottom, I found our man!
Abercrombie Fizzwidget, a Galaxy-renowned genius, plucked them from their home and gave them a new mission of dire urgitude. An experiment made by the weapon retailer Megacorp was stolen. Ratchet, eager for another adventure, signed up, while Clank sat out. The experiment was eventually sold as a proto-pet, or children's toy, where it began to terrorize the citizens of the galaxy. The thief who stole the proto-pet turned out to be another Lombax, Angela Cross, a previous employee of Megacorp who was trying to stop mass production.
Don't have time to stand around explaining it to you.
The disaster was actually devised by Captain Quark, who was just posing as the famous inventor to redeem himself, save the galaxy, and become a hero once again. Quark took it a bit too far, creating a proto-pet Godzilla, which Ratchet and Clank were forced to deal with. Along with bolts, Ratchet now gained experience as he dismantled enemies, earning him more health or nanotech, as opposed to the 5 or 6 nanotech cap in the previous game. Weapons also gained XP, so using them to kill enough enemies netted you a more powerful version with an added twist. The mini turret glove, which placed laser-blasting automated turrets on the battlefield, became the mega turret glove, which fired heat-seeking missiles.
That was pretty impressive.
Megacorp also supplied Ratchet with several devices to tinker with. The Bouncer, a launcher that sent out an exploding bomb that split into tiny bombs, inflicted mass chaos upon enemy crowds. The plasma coil electrified them, the synthenoids acted like Ratchet's personal bodyguards, the mini nuke launcher practically cleared the screen, and the lava gun sprayed the searing stuff everywhere. Even Ratchet's trusty wrench got an upgrade or two.
Use rock to break glass to get wrench to break glass to get rock. Ooh, I love logic puzzles. Let's see. If you break the glass with the...
Solved it.
New game modes were an important part of Going Commando. Ship combat, briefly featured in the first game, now became a major component, with several levels dedicated to pitting your ship against an armada of targets. Hover bikes, simple adaptations of the previous hoverboards, opened up more races. Unlike the previous game, there was an incentive to race again to win big bolt prizes for harder circuits. Anyone willing to grind for their bolts and experience could brave the arena, an enemy wave generator that would return in every subsequent release.
Introducing, from nowhere in particular, this guy!
Going Commando sold almost 3 million copies, and reviews at the time considered it an unquestionable improvement. Eager to keep their schedule on track, over 100 minds at Insomniac focused solely on the third Ratchet and Clank game that would release in November of 2004.
Gentlemen, you have my most profound gratitude.
It was nothing, sir.
In Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, the heroes received news that Ratchet's homeworld, Veldin, was under attack by the Tyrannoids. They blasted off just in time to save the planet and were employed by the Galactic President to stop the Tyrannoid invasions and the mastermind behind them, Dr. Nefarious. With the help of a rehabilitated Captain Quark, a few past allies, and a monkey, they blew up what needed blowing up to stop all organic species, aka squishies, from becoming robots.
What? That wasn't even close to 60 seconds!
Nefarious was stopped at the last possible moment. It was promptly launched with his sarcastic butler into oblivion.
Perhaps if you had bothered to specify a destination...
Insomniac listened intently to their fans, so unpopular elements like space combat were cut and replaced with assault levels that had you fighting with other space rangers, piloting the occasional hovercraft or Puma tank to complete various objectives. There were also Quark vid comics, a throwback to the side-scrolling era, acting as a pleasant distraction from the main story. Annihilation Nation became its own planet, including an obstacle course to test the best. Arena offered new weapon restrictions, timed modes, and the Quarktastic Challenge, which threw 100 waves of enemies at the player.
I couldn't have done it without these massive guns!
And as the name suggests, the arsenal got up. The Plasmic Whip had all the functionality of the handy wrench with the added bonus of setting things on fire. The Agents of Doom, a throwback to the first game, could fly and fire mounted guns. And who could forget the Rift Ripper, a weapon that opened up a black hole and dragged enemies kicking and screaming into it. Once again, all weapons were upgradable through experience. They included 5 separate levels and 3 more for the Omega version in the second playthrough. Each time a weapon improved, it would gain new abilities and increased power. The Shock Blaster, for instance, became the Shock Cannon, with the added ability to store up a charge.
Like destroy all squishies, dude.
The Gadget Lab followed suit. The new Dynamo merged with the Swing Shot to create the Hyper Shot, making platforming easier and more complicated at the same time. And the Refractor created opportunities for redirecting incoming laser blasts. Insomniac had added all the right parts to its well-oiled machine to create the best example of its action platformer aesthetic yet. It outsold Going Commando with 2 million gobbled up in the US and more than 3 million in sales overall. Game Informer and the official PlayStation magazine gave it perfect scores.
Bring the car around, Jeeves, and mind the ejector seat this time.
The following year, Sony announced the PlayStation 3, and Insomniac was hard at work on a shooter that would symbolize the system's performance. The next gen was beckoning, but the PS2 was still an incredibly popular machine. Both Insomniac and Naughty Dog returned in the fall with trimmed-down versions of their franchises. Jack chose to focus on the vehicle physics his fans adored, and Insomniac benched Clank in favor of a darker, less jump, more shoot kind of experience. Gone were the large levels with branching paths, replaced with rat mazes that had you playing an unwilling part in the fight or die galactic television show, Dread Zone.
A dramatic conclusion to one of the most exciting episodes of Dread Zone I have ever seen.
Ratchet Deadlocked premiered in October of 2005. Bumped out of the title and the gameplay, Clank merely guided Ratchet as he climbed up the rankings of Dread Zone, defeating exterminators and trying to escape captivity. Deep in the Shadow Sector in the Solana Galaxy, Ratchet was captured by Gleeman Vox, who led himself to ruin after Ratchet refused to join his media army. The game could be played either solo with a pair of robot buddies,
call me Merc, this here's Green,
or, in a series first, cooperatively with a friend. The latter led to ridiculous amounts of fun as you tore up the landscape with weapons like the Hunter Mine Launcher, the Scorpion Flail, or the Battlefield Clearing Harbinger.
It's time to blow it up!
Deadlocked was a polished product, but not what fans had expected. It was a bit darker and more repetitive than its predecessors, but still sold well and garnered positive reviews. It was the last Ratchet and Clank game to launch on the PlayStation 2, and fans already knew RNC would not be Insomniac's #1 priority in the next generation. November of 2006, a holiday release slot usually reserved for the Lombax and Robot, instead heralded the launch of Insomniac's newest franchise, Resistance, with its first episode, Fall of Man.
I will assist you any way I can.
Thanks, Clank. These guys obviously don't know who they're messing with.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our Ratchet and Clank retrospective. Our heroes go mobile on Sony's nifty new gizmo, the PlayStation Portable. The series suits up for the next generation with a second trilogy as memorable as the first.
Do I know you two? You look awfully familiar.
Nope. First time here.